Welcome to Athletes and Entrepreneurs, the Alumni Journey. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct. We've created a platform to help athletes and other alumni network and connect with each other and tap into various resources in health and finance and career. But more importantly, in this podcast, we look more about athletes transitioning out of sport. It's such a major issue today, mental health, financial literacy. So we interview former college and professional athletes, and we talk about their transition out of sport into successful business leadership and entrepreneurship. And it's all about teaching and inspiring athletes that there is life after sports. So excited today to have Marc Winston. How you doing, Marc?
Doing well, Rob. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, thanks. It's great to have you on today. And so Marc was a football and a basketball player growing up. Those were his two sports that he loved. And when he went to college, he went to University of Arkansas, and he played football there for a couple of years. And then he transferred to University of Central Arkansas. And then they let him play basketball too. So he got to do both of his loves. And when Marc was done playing football, with his transition out of sport, he got into the finance field. Ultimately, he kind of switched over and got into logistics and procurement, worked for some like a small company, something called Walmart, kind of tiny, right?
Just a little Fortune 1 company. Yeah.
Yeah. And then now he has Marc Winston Enterprises, which he founded, and he does various consulting. He still hits in on that logistics space, procurement space, but he also gets into NIL. He also coaches youth basketball, some pretty stud level youth basketball. So he does public speaking. My head's spinning. I asked him about books. Hasn't got there yet, but it's on his agenda. So there's a lot going on there, Marc.
Yeah, it's a lot going on, Rob. I've tried to make sure I stay busy. And thank you so much for inviting me to this platform. Thank you to our good friend Kelly for connecting us. This is the perfect space to talk about these type of things. So glad to be here.
That's great. It's a pleasure. So first, I always like to ask, talk about how sports shaped you growing up, leading up into college.
Well, Rob, I started playing football at the age of 6, basketball at the age of 8. So I've been in this for a long time. I had some pretty young parents. My father, who was an Arkansas Razorback, I'm a third generation Razorback. But my father was actually in college when I was born. So I can remember being 2 and 4 years old, and there's pictures to prove it, being at the games, calling the Hogs that young. So I've always been immersed in sports. But I'll tell you, it taught me everything that it is cliche stereotype to teach. It has taught me the lessons of life. It's taught me discipline. It's taught me how to get back up. It really instilled a lot of self-confidence. It instilled a lot of self-motivation. I could kind of get myself going, whether it was football, basketball, work. It taught me that. And it's funny because the late, great Eddie Robinson, I had the chance to have a relationship with him because my uncle coached at Grambling State with him. I remember being at his house, and I have a T-shirt, which he signed, and he put on the T-shirt, "Football teaches the lessons of life." And Rob, it made me a respectable man, a disciplined man. And as you mentioned, playing football and basketball through college, my time management was on point. And so that really helped shape me. And it was something that allowed me to grow socially. Me and my father coached me for a number of years. So it allowed me and him to have that relationship as well, outside of just the normal father-son relationship. And he was my toughest coach. He was the toughest coach. He was my biggest critic, but also my biggest cheerleader. So growing up through sports, I learned how to take a chewing and that constructive criticism that comes. He really prepared me for life and coaches. If I could take my father's criticism in game, post game, then going to college and hearing those coaches go off or dealing with a strict boss or deadlines, that was nothing. I've been pressure tested, and I thank sports for that. That pressure made some diamonds, and I'm thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah, I like that one. Pressure making diamonds. That's great. So did you dream about being a professional athlete? I mean, you played both sports. Which one did you want to play?
So I did dream of it, and it was kind of one of those things where I had the true kid dream of, I'm going to play both. I can remember saying, I'm going to play both. But essentially, I actually thought I was going to be probably an NFL player. As I grew older, as a child, I said I want to play both. But as I grew older, I started to see that my 6'7" frame in football was a big frame. In basketball, I'm average. I definitely think I could have had a decent NBA career should I got the chance. Like, I knew I could have had a great college basketball career, but maybe decent NBA. But essentially football became that real dream. I had my uncle Dennis Winston. He actually played 12 years in the league. He played 9 years with the Steelers through the 70s into the early 80s. Spent a couple of years in New Orleans and then came back to finish up with the Steelers. I think he ended up playing up until 85, got 2 Super Bowl rings. So I was always hearing that lore and those stories about Dennis Dirk Winston. My father had a short time in the league, and I was just one of those things where that's what I saw. That was my aspiration, and I definitely wanted to be that professional football player, basketball player, whatever it was. I wanted to play in the league.
Yeah, I always joke around. I said I want to be a Major League Baseball player. Unfortunately, talent wasn't there, so I do podcasts and I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and we all have to face that sometimes. I always say that ball stopped bouncing at some point.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I would imagine, I guess your uncle was probably playing in, when that been like the Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swan
Yeah,
days?
he was part of the steel curtain. He played linebacker. He was
Okay.
behind some pretty good guys in that linebacker
Yeah.
core, but he played major minutes in that defense. They played a lot of 5-3 back in the day there too. But yeah, Mean Joe Green was like the best man in his wedding.
Wow.
We have a binder with all their team pictures that they take in fall camp, and everybody signed it. So him and my father went back to a celebration a couple of years ago where they brought back the steel curtain. It's just one of those things where it's cool, and it's always one of those things to nicely say, "Yeah, like I know someone who was a part of that legendary team."
No, that's cool. I mean, as great as Mean Joe Green was, my memory is him giving his jersey to the kid with the Coca-Cola.
The commercial, the Coca-Cola commercial, legendary, legendary. And I can remember when I came out of college, which was 2008ish, 2008, he was a scout for the Steelers, and I can remember him coming in. I'm actually sitting in the film room, and he's walking behind. I see him, and he just looked at me and kind of gave one of those and kept on walking. But he was an older, grayer Mean Joe then. But yeah, it's crazy to look back and just have those memories.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about education of transitioning out of sport. As I mentioned before, in the beginning, it's such a major issue. When you were at either school, was there education teaching athletes like what's next? Not just like a one-day workshop, but more curriculum towards it?
We didn't really have a curriculum for that. There was nothing in place that purposely or intentionally said, "Hey, here's how we can prepare you for life after sports or life after ball." The one thing that I would say Arkansas tried to do pretty well was put you with a mentor that was an alumni, which my mentor was amazing. I can't say that everybody else's was. I can't speak for them. But my mentor, Marcus Showtime Campbell, was a former Arkansas alum from North Little Rock. His son, Chase Campbell, just signed with Texas Tech. So he's one of those guys that understood that the ball stopped bouncing. And he kind of talked to me. We had relationships from college, post college, up to this point now where we still talk about real life things. So not necessarily a curriculum, but the mentorship that was set up for us out of Arkansas fared well with me because I got lucky enough to have someone to have those conversations. And then my father instilled a lot of that. So even what I was missing in curriculum or purposeful classes or tutelage at the university, I was getting from mentorships. I was getting from my father to prepare for life after ball.
Yeah, and that's great, and it'd be nice if more people can have that.
Yes.
I think from a school perspective, they're getting maybe a little bit better today, but it needs additional help. I mean, we've talked about bringing resource partners to programs, athletics, and just saying, hey, we want to set up this additional curriculum to help not only the current athletes, but the alumni athletes as well. Because it'd be nice if you can go back to your alma mater and say, hey, I'm done with my career, whether it was from college or as a professional, I need help. And it'd be nice to have that. And it doesn't seem like there's enough of that out there right now.
100%. 100% agree.
Yeah. So let's talk about networking and connecting. It's so important. Talk about, especially while you're playing the game.
So I think a lot of people ask me, Mark, did you pledge a fraternity? And I'm like, no, I didn't pledge a fraternity. But I feel like I'm a part of one of the biggest fraternities there is, and that's the college athlete, and even more specifically, the college football athlete, because that team has 85 to 105 people showing up. And what you find is all your peers that you compete against, you start to build relationships with them. When I was lucky enough when I got to college, that's when Facebook had just came out, so you could connect across these college platforms, and you start to build relationships with certain players from your recruiting trips. You know, the Cornelius Ingrams that went to Florida, the Kenny O'Neills who went to Florida State and Tennessee. You build these relationships, and for all of you that post athletic career, you start to have those conversations while you're playing. You start to talk to people that are taking the same classes. Me and my friends, Marcus Monk, John Aaron Reese, we had conversations while we were in school about, man, what do you want to do when you grow up? And so we all had similar but different paths ironed out. And I think that while we were in school, we were having some conversations, not realizing how that was us networking and preparing. The schools I selectively went to did a great job of job fairs and having people who are counselors to have you like, hey, Mark, I need you to go out here and show up for this. Like, hey, I got some people coming to talk to you. So I had a couple people in my corner because I was a true student athlete. I built relationships with my course advisors. And so they would put me in situations and conversations to where I had to start to think about what do I do after ball. And so I was able to connect with a few people there. But majority of my connections and my networking, Rob, came of post ending my playing career. While I was there, I had some conversations. There were a couple opportunities. There were job fairs where I got connected to people who were in certain industries that I knew I wanted to be in. I knew I was going to be a business, corporate America guy at some point, supply chain, transportation, logistics, something like that. So I had some conversations, but I should have done more while I was in college. I wish I had done more, but once I got out, it clicked for me that your network is your net worth. And I think that's when I did majority of my network.
Yeah, obviously it's never too late to do that. I mean, I talk about just even starting as young as high school. You think about you've got your teammates that you'll see in the future, their parents, coaches. And there's a lot of people, and we definitely encourage to network, especially while you're playing. I remember talking to some agents that just said that their guys made it through, let's say, the NFL, but they didn't do that networking. And then when they got done, they were like, okay, where's my big six-figure job? And it wasn't there for them because they hadn't built those relationships. So I think it's critical all along the way. It's never too late, like we said, but to try to do it while you're young and you're still playing.
Yeah, and being around like-minded people. Like I said, some of those names I mentioned, they were just like-minded people that understood being a student athlete with student being first. So we had a little conversation. But to your point, it's never too late. It's never too early. And I would love to see more intentional curriculums based around, just that networking, understanding the fields you're interested in, what it takes, what it looks like, who is in that position that could give you some little tidbits and nuances to kind of help you along your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another thing I like to talk about too is kind of cross networking amongst different athletes. Like, so not just like you mentioned, you got that now you're in a unique position because you play both football and basketball, but did you see that like football interacting with baseball, basketball, soccer, whatever it might be, or was it kind of siloed?
It was very siloed. I did not see a lot of that. Now, I had the privilege of having friends across multiple sports, and I'm a kind of a personable person. Like, I do well in common areas and common places, getting to know people and asking questions. So as we had common areas for athletes to kind of assemble, yeah, I would walk over to friends like Ben Shepardkoff on the baseball team or Ronnie Brewer on the basketball team and sit and talk and joke. But we didn't have those deep conversations. And so I didn't see a lot of that aligning on future stuff. It was just normal college kid conversations. We didn't have the networking mindset that, hey, these kids come from a different background. They're going to be traveling a different path. Let's connect. So I didn't see that cross reference like that in college.
Yeah, and I think because it's the athlete has similar DNA, similar the skill set depends on the sport, but still it's that DNA. So I think there's so much value that I always bring up with the podcast how I do a networking event amongst my podcast guests, and it's really cool to see the wrestler, the swimmer, the football player,
Right.
The baseball player, but everybody kind of rolling up their sleeves and like, how can we help? And
Right.
it's just because it's that affinity relationship, just like as an alumni from a college, you have something in common at being an athlete. All started playing probably like 5-6 years old, playing all the way through.
100%. I agree 100%. Yeah. And I love that networking with your guests. Like, to me, that is very, very unique. And you already have like-minded people who are speaking to this space, the transition of athlete to entrepreneur, the transition into the professional world. And so we all get it. So coming together, bringing those like-minded individuals that have diverse backgrounds and thoughts, that's amazing.
Well, you're in. We'll be doing one soon, and
Kudos to you, Rob. I appreciate it. Yes,
they'll be coming. I got to get back into doing them because it is fun. I like get the people together. So let's switch gears and talk about alumni engagement. Obviously, something important to us at Alumni Direct. When you were at school, I mean, you talked about mentoring, which is good. So was there a conscious effort to bring alumni athletes back, and not just for the homecoming game or the golf tournament, but like to be involved in the program?
I'll say it was always kind of welcome. You'll have some of those alumni come back to hang out on game days or, the big game weeks I remember being a freshman, we played Texas, sophomore, we played. It's just kind of, they come back those weeks. But outside of that initial freshman to alumni mentor program, there wasn't a lot of intentionality that I saw at either school. And it's not something that I heard a lot about from my peers at other schools. Now, we always hear and see like the University of Miami, they do a great job of welcoming back their alumni to be on the sideline. And I can't speak to what those conversations are, but I can say that we didn't get those ingrained, in-depth conversations from alumni to say, hey, prepare for this. Start thinking about this. What do you think about this? They weren't really poking and prodding to get that anything out of us that wasn't sports related. So I think there is a gap there, Rob. There's a gap. And I think what you're identifying here is there's an opportunity. Didn't see it. Would have loved to have gotten that. Do I think there's a place for it? Absolutely. Do I think it's needed? Absolutely. But I can't say from my career of 2004 to that 2008, I didn't see a lot of that. Me being that internally motivated person, me being driven from a mother and father that pushed education, and the father that always told me, the mother, both of them college educated, both of them telling me that, hey, that ball is going to stop bouncing. You have to make sure that you get that paper, get that degree, so that you have something to fall back on. And that was always in my ear. Good game, bad game, whatever it was, football, basketball, whatever, it was always told, get your degree so that you have something to succeed in post-ball. And I think that's something I just had in my ear. So again, I was going to the college fair, but I didn't see intentional curriculums or intentional effort from the alumni or even just the athletic program pushing into its athletes.
Yeah, for sure. So now we were joking around beforehand. So here comes the question. Mark did watch a couple podcasts, but he didn't get to the question. We're going to play a little Back to the Future, and we're going to hop in the DeLorean, and we're going to go back to freshman year at Arkansas. So in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to Mark?
Wow. Freshman Mark, 18 years old, on campus of University of Arkansas, Fayetteville. What advice would I give him? I think what I would like to tell him is embrace the journey, failures and all. That's what I would like for him to know. Embrace that journey, failures and all. And I'll tell you in more than 10 words why, Rob. That's not just on the field. I had ups and downs in my career, football, basketball, whatever it is. I had ups and downs. I had trials and tribulations. I struggled at times. I prevailed at times. But what I learned is, back to what I told you about what Eddie Robinson taught me, even post-career, not having the professional career that I thought I should have. Some jobs, and although I got a lot of promotions, some promotions I did not get. I had to embrace all those failures because I think all of those made me and prepared me for what came next in life. I'm a man of faith. And so I stayed prayed up and I stayed trying to mentally stay ready. Everything happens for a reason. But there were times in college and maybe out of college, I didn't handle the failures so well. But then I had to like regroup and kind of get myself together. And I think that if I had told 18-year-old Mark that, I might have been planning and more mentally prepared for those failures, that I might have been able to be proactive to avoid some of them. But embracing those failures,
All right, now we're going to fast forward to senior Mark. What advice would you give to him?
Be bold, sir. Be bold, Mark. Go for everything. Be bold and go for everything as if you deserve it. That might put me around 10 words. Be bold, go for everything as if you deserve it.
That's good. All right. You did it. You passed the test.
Thank you. I'm glad I didn't get to those in the podcast. I love that question. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. So now let's fast forward. So we're going to talk now about your transition out of sports. So, as I mentioned, it's very difficult. Talk a little bit about your transition from playing football and basketball to all of a sudden now you're in the working world.
Yeah, had the privilege to go to a couple camps and workouts for teams across the NFL and the CFL at the time. But ultimately did not have the career I wanted to get. But I did have my degree. I had a degree in business management and marketing, and I think I was a couple of credits shy of a second degree in finance. And actually thought about doing grad school, but I tried the camp thing for a while and then went straight into the workforce. For me, what my parents instilled in me about getting that degree and being professional in something other than sports was always instilled in me. So my transition was pretty seamless. As soon as I realized that this wasn't going to be my life, I wasn't going to be that all-pro tight end or left tackle, I went straight into the finance world. Why? Numbers were easy to me. So retail finance came easy to me. I then went to investment finance, working at Stevens Inc. investment firm in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so that right there was easy, gave me a base to kind of get my feet wet and kind of get some type of foundation where I could start to make my money, save my money. And then I essentially got into Walmart, transportation logistics and supply chain and procurement. But coming from Ball, I can't say it was easy mentally as I made it seem or look. And I think I've had some conversations with some peers about, we all have that what if moment. We all have that, but I was so much better than him moment. And to be able to see people playing and having the career that you might have dominated or had great success against one-on-one, to see them having that success in a sport, in a dream that you had, sometimes takes a toll on us as athletes. And we don't always talk about it out loud. We don't always share how we feel internally. But I think we all have a little bit of that, like, what if, or did I give it my all, or what would have happened if this decision was different? You know, if I'd have chose a different school, a different sport, or whatever the case may be. So although I kept moving, kept prevailing, despite any failures, mentally, it takes a little bit of a toll on you. Sometimes it's hard to watch that game and knowing that that defensive end that's out there in his second year, you killed him every time you played him. So there's a little bit of that kind of takes a toll. But I was able to successfully move on to the workforce and have a pretty successful career there.
All righty. So now maybe give some words of advice to athletes as they do transition in a sport, whether it's, from college or from being a professional athlete.
Yeah, despite any level of transition, no matter you're ending college, high school, or even professionally, I would say this: lean on your network and your band of brothers. Those teammates that might be going through the same thing, talk to them, open up, share ideas. I think you go back to some of the professors that you went to college with that are in that college of business or science or whatever it is. Lean on your network of people and let people know, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what my interests are. And what you'll find is people will actually openly help in most cases. I have relationships with professors to this day that I haven't taken a class from them since 2008, but we still keep in touch via LinkedIn. I had my actual 5th grade teacher reach out to me 2 weeks ago. So just talking to people and people seeing what you're doing. The other thing I would tell people is promote yourself. If you're not on LinkedIn, if you're not on social media telling your story, then you're probably cheating yourself and leaving a little bit out of there. Lean on your network and promote yourself.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice there. And I always talk about calling the nuggets, and definitely people need to hear what Marc said. I think that's pretty important. A lot of people too just talk about find your passion. Like, what are you passionate about, or make sure that you're planning properly as you're getting ready to embrace that next journey. Let's go now and then because I want to talk about Marc Winston Enterprises and just talk about a couple areas I'm pretty interested in, and we'll get into. So how did you decide ultimately to kind of make that transition to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so after like a decade in corporate America, I started to build a reputation where I was doing a lot of speaking engagements, talking to people about best practices of procurement, supply chain, retail, how to maneuver. And so I started doing speaking engagements, and then I was like, man, it'd be nice to kind of brand this thing. So when I initially started Marc Winston Enterprises, it was for my speaking engagement, solely that. The speaking engagements would lead to other conversations with people saying, well, hey, Marc, we would love to spend some one-on-one time. So Marc Winston Enterprises, LLC, touches on procurement and supply chain best practices. It touches on business development, connecting people to those that they need to be connected with, whether it's supplier to corporations, B2B, B2C, whatever it is, just connecting people, being that business development connector. But I really love the supply chain and procurement best practices because I'm meeting a lot of early emerging brands to intermediate brands that just kind of need those little nuances and tidbits of how to scale. That's where my expertise comes in. And over almost 12 years with Walmart, I touched on a lot of that, helping people as a job. So being able to bring it to them at a more intimate level through Marc Winston Enterprise was something that I had a passion to do and been able to do. The other thing that Marc Winston Enterprise is now tapping into is the NIL space, the name, image, and likeness for these college athletes. Because as you mentioned, I've been there. I've been in that seat. I was a very highly recruited kid out of Arkansas in both sports. Had to make a great decision of, you're talking about almost 25 to 30 scholarship offers in both sports. So I've been in that seat for those athletes, and then coming to the business world, working with entrepreneurs, working with founders, working with people who are in this corporate marketing space, the business side of it. I've seen that too. So for me, I took Marc Winston Enterprise as a chance to merge those two worlds, my athletic experience, my business experience, and putting it all together.
That's great. And give me some thoughts, both positive and negative, within the whole NIL space.
Yeah, the NIL space right now is still wild, wild west, right? So we have a lot of kids that are out there chasing the dollar. I like to think of it like this. A lot of kids are negotiating with these colleges and the collectives for how much will I be able to sign for. I like to call it kind of like a signing bonus. So to me, that kind of brings in the narrative and the practice and the reality that kids are just moving year to year, chasing the bag, chasing the money. If you offer me more, I'm going to jump. If you offer me more, I'm going to jump. That's kind of the negative side, but it's the reality of it. The positive side is this. There are a lot of kids that are making life-changing money in a time where it's never been done before, and people are able to change their life despite maybe not having a professional career. What I like to see is those kids, the Taylor Greens of the world, like the quarterback from the University of Arkansas, who make the big contract, they have the big money, and they're investing it and doing it well. There are people creating generational wealth at this space, just like the kids are in Europe playing basketball at 15, 16, 17, just like the baseball players that have been getting drafted out of high school for years, been able to make some life-changing money. Football and basketball have now entered the realm. But what I really want to focus on for me and my engagement with my clients for NIL is the true endorsement side of NIL, building the branding opportunities. There's not a lot of kids tapping into the branding and endorsement side of it. Those that are, they're winning. And that's what I want to bring to it. So yeah, it causes a lot of movement. It's kind of volatile right now with all of this money on the table. But for those who are maximizing and doing it well, people are creating portfolios, people are accumulating assets, people are creating generational wealth at a time that we've never been able to see it before. And that's where the education comes in. That's where people like myself come in to educate them on how to file the taxes, how to pay the taxes, what taxes are, how to manage the money, where to put it, connect you with people that can help you expand your brain. That's what Marc Winston Enterprises does.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on key there too, just the education. Because I had another podcast too that I did with a friend of mine called NIL, the number 4U, NIL for you, and we didn't talk about the money side of it as far as like the endorsements, again, the big deals. It was more about the education, educating these kids, these high school kids and their families on, again, start an LLC. You got to have to pay taxes, that whole financial literacy piece, which I think is missing. And it sounds great what you're offering there to help them in that, because I think that's so critical, because you are seeing a lot of different people. Like I was talking to somebody the other day and they're saying nowadays you might see, that athlete that's not the top guy or top woman. They might be, my friend always brings up, I want to say it was at Michigan, like the number 10 or 11 guy on Michigan on the bench was like one of the leading NIL guys out there, because guys promoted the heck out of it. He knew how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. There are some players that have really gotten to marketing themselves. And then to me, that's a whole nother avenue to a career post-ball, marketing. There are some D2 guys that are out there getting endorsement deals just because they're marketing themselves. Now, you got the Bryson Underwoods of the world that are making $12 million as a freshman. But everybody's not like that. But what about the guy that can just go make $150,000 for 4 years? What about the guy that can make $300,000 for 2 years? That's life-changing money.
Yeah, I always think back. We had on our podcast, it's got Jack Betts, and Jack played Division III at Amherst football, and he studied NIL when it came out. It was right around COVID time, I guess, and he ended up winning the NIL, I guess, like athlete of the year based on like how many deals he got as a Division III athlete. But to your point, I mean, he studied, he understood it. And there was people that made a lot more money than him, but based on the amount of deals he was getting because he understood the system, I think is pretty cool. So let's kind of wrap it up and talk about a little about coaching. You're coaching basketball. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah. So listen, this is truly a passion of mine now, Rob. Like coming out of ball, you're always trying to find a way to stay competitive or stay close to the game. And basketball actually was my favorite sport. So for the past few years, it actually started while in college, assisting my father, coaching my younger brother, who's like 8.5 years younger than me, coaching him on the Adidas circuit. So him and his friends have been playing since they were third grade. I got with them and just kind of assisted my father in coaching my brother. took a little bit of time off while I got my feet set in my career, then came back. And for the past 3 or 4 years, been coaching on the Nike EYBL circuit. Some of the top ranked athletes, top competitors, but very high level skilled basketball players have come from that EYBL, the AJ DeBanstas of the world right now, the Cooper Flags. I got a chance to watch all those guys, coach against a couple of them as well. So this is my way to scratch my competitive itch, stay close to the game, but most importantly, give back to these athletes and help them not just mold themselves on the basketball court, but mold themselves in life. That mentorship I talked about that I received in college from Marcus Campbell, I'm giving that to them now. The conversations that we talk about that people need to start having now, I'm giving that to them now. We have those conversations about taking school serious, what school can do for you. We have the conversations about what to do when the ball stops bouncing. We have conversations about what do you want to do when you grow up. I'm going to talk to you about how to be in help and how to make sure you're closing out of control and how to be in triple threat and how to run all these offense and these schemes. But I also want to talk to you about what happens when that ball stops bouncing. And so that's been my gift, to be around some very high level competitive ball, but also be around some great young individuals that I can help impute just a little bit of knowledge and game to. And my biggest reward comes when you see them start where they are, immature, maybe not as skilled, but graduate, get that offer, and then become a productive individual in college and then ultimately as a adult in society.
We need a lot more Marc Winstons out there that they're out helping these kids and mentoring and just all the things we just talked about. So how can people find you?
Listen, you can find me on Facebook, Marc Winston. On Instagram is _M.Winston. On LinkedIn, Marc Winston. My email is MWinstonEnterprises@yahoo.com. I have my website under work right now, under construction. We had to take it down. We're going to come back up with Marc Winston Enterprises. But you can find me on TikTok, newly on TikTok, Marc Winston Enterprises. But you can find me there. That's Marc Winston with a C. Winston, Winston.
This has been great, Marc, and we really appreciate it. You can find us at alumnidirect.com. The show is across Spotify, Apple, all the different podcast networks, as well as the Alumni Direct YouTube channel. And I just encourage people. I said, every week, we always say we want to help at least one person. Obviously, we want to help a lot more. It is a major issue. Athletes transitioning out of sport, and we want athletes to feel like, hey, you can reach out for help, and people are willing to do that. Marc's a great example of just giving back and helping people out. So don't be afraid to do that, and definitely tune in each week. We have great nuggets, as I always say. Marc gave some great ones today, and we look forward to the next episode.
All right, thank you, Rob.
My pleasure.